Hello. Hello. Can people hear me? Hey Nick, hopefully the answer is now. Yeah, I just can people hear me? Hello. I'm very sorry. Something was super wrong with like everything. Alright. I need to post this new link. So something happened with the event I posted and it wouldn't let me stream into that event, so I had to create a new stream. So it's probably relevant to tell everyone on the other thing that are probably waiting. Okay, gotta delete that. Put that new link. This is quite frustrating. This is the first time that this has ever happened on stream. I never had this problem before. And quite honestly, this is this very unfortunate that it literally just happened right now. Regardless, let me just finish my setup. Usually my setup doesn't take this long. Except YouTube decided to hang on me multiple times. Anyway, while we're waiting, how's everyone? How is everyone? Yeah. Change the stream name to Devastation Playtesting. And I believe that should be it. Now I just need Tabletop Simulator up and running and not dying on itself. So, it seems that we don't have too many people for this stream. It's understandable. Usually the streams are at night, and I do this one in the morning. This is just because my internet's been acting wonky, and I was only really confident with it working at night. So here I am doing the stream. I know I said the stream was going to be like 2 hours long. There's actually not a lot of changes to the characters in the cast. So it might be a shorter stream than I expected. But that's fine, you know, we can all enjoy the stream regardless. If you heard that noise, that was just, you know. That noise was obviously just something. I mean, I kid. That was Tabletop Simulator. I'm starting Tabletop Simulator. It's Devastation. I changed the stream title. Hey Jared, what's up? Oh, don't hang on me now. You know what? I think I really need to buy a new computer. She's chugging. It's great to have all of you here. You know what? That just means you are the true believers. I believe this should be correct. So I should be on Tabletop Simulator right now. Hopefully all of you see it. Tell me if you don't see it. Yeah, you should all be seeing it right now. So this is going to be a very different kind of stream, in the sense that it's not going to be all just me going over changes, but it's also going to be me giving you my thoughts and some comments on how these changes have tested over the past week, because contrary to popular belief, I do play this game. I kid. So, who do you want to go? So one thing you might notice on this stream is that instead of the usual 30, we only have 10 characters in this bag. Any character you don't see on this list is most likely just quote-unquote done, or at least their cards have not changed significantly. So these are the ones that we really need to test, and so they're the ones that have this updated bag. So if nobody's gonna ask for a request for a character, I'm going to... how do I put this gently? I'm just gonna pick one for myself. So chat, just tell me who you want to play. Well, not play, but you know, hear about, know about, learn about. Okay, Gaspar. Nick has requested Gaspar, and so Gaspar it shall be. Okay, so quick disclaimer before we do anything here. You will notice that the colors on these things look a bit weird, for sure, right? This is because these are files taken from the press copy. This means that they are in CMYK as opposed to RGB. Hence the color differences. This is not what it will look like when you have it in your hands. It's just that this is how the computer ends up rendering it. Yeah. So your color spaces are different from having it be a digital file and it being a printable file. So that's why it's like that. As to why that happened that way, it was mostly because we're trying to get everything ready for print. So that's why we had the print files available and we didn't do RGBs for this testing time. What's more important is the test. This, however, has the nice side effect of making it clear which cards have actually changed, because you can easily tell which cards are just different looking, right? So we'll know which cards have been changed. I believe Warp was also changed. Nope, nope, it's the same. Okay. Let's go over some changes to Gaspar. The big change has to be his unique ability. His unique ability has been changed because he no longer gets to move the clone when he does the anti for duplicated. That's really important because back then, he could be like, oh, you're standing on my clone? Alright, I'll just move my clone one space, and then now it's a fighter. right? So if for some strange reason you end up on the clone space, Gaspar cannot actually use his unique ability. That's very important to note. The brighter colors are nice. Yeah, they look very posterized though. So, yeah. But this isn't what it'll look like when printed either, right? Like, that's the thing, is that the stream heavily misrepresents how bright the colors actually end up being, and that's why it's the CMYK. So this is like too saturated, and this is too undersaturated, right? So, yeah. Okay, let's move on. The point here is that Gaspar was getting his clone into the proper positioning too easily, and he was also giving his clones fake hit confirm, right? Because if he can move them one space, your grasps are suddenly range 1 to 2, right? As opposed to the regular ranges. I mean, it's not the same thing as being range 1 to 2, but you know what I mean. So the big changes here are on cascading. Well, no. Actually, it's the same. So Gaspar didn't actually change in terms of his cards. I believe Cascading's change was simply a simple wording change. I think it says teleport or shift. I think it used to only say shift, right? But now it says teleport or shift because sometimes the clone can be a fighter, right? And you cannot shift fighters, you have to teleport them. So, one other thing that we have to also look at is Bladestorm. So Bladestorm changed, and one thing that it says here is that the opponent cannot advance past Gaspar. This is a very different piece of text, right? This used to say the opponent cannot advance past you. This means that you could place Bladestorm on your clone and turn it into a movement trapper. Now, if you want to trap the opponent's movement, Gaspar has to put his face up to them. I mean, you can still put Bladestorm on your clone. It's just that the cannot move past clause is about Gaspar, never the clone. So even if the clone plays Bladestorm, the opponent cannot move past Gaspar clause still happens on Gaspar's stand-up as opposed to the clone space. Gaspar's big problem in terms of testing was the fact that he basically set up 8 to 9 damage turns that were undodgeable and unbeatable because he would just Bladestorm and then you can't dodge past it, and then he would just do some other crazy stuff. The change to Bladestorm and the change to the unique ability made it so that the setup is less trivial, but also Gaspar has to put himself in danger if he wants to do Bladestorm, right? Because if Gaspar's on the opposite side of the board, then Bladestorm does nothing, quote unquote. So it's now important that you trade with Gaspar on the turns that he Bladestorms. At least there's some counterplay to it now, as opposed to just Gaspar going, herder, let me deal 9 damage for free, no reason. And yes, Road Guard is indeed a stat now. So those are the big changes to Gaspar. Small change, but very significant. That UA change is very significant. Alright, other people have already requested other characters, so let's just move on to them. Orianna. So, one thing I want to talk about Orianna is a bit interesting. So, there's actually no point in me bringing out Orianna's cards, because I don't believe anything in her kit changed ever since I last showed it on stream. But what is the problem with Orianna? Okay, long story short, Orianna as a character is supposed to be all about, garnering that mana, getting all of that MP, and then spending it for big effects. The only way she gets NP before was, via the use of her styles, which usually were after activating effects, hit effects, or, stuff like that. She had to work to get her mana back. And so it was a delicate dance of spend mana to regain mana, and then spend that mana to regain more mana, right? You had to manage your mana really well. One thing that is quote-unquote a problem with current Orianna is that Force is now mana. Or rather, you can spend mana as Force. Sorry, Force as mana. Which means that you're actually passively gaining mana every turn by just virtue of gaining Force. This means that Orianna doesn't actually have to work to get her mana anymore. She just gets it. This isn't that big of a problem until we get to until we get here. These two cards are increasingly showing that they could be problems because they essentially stat gate a lot of characters. Metamagical basically turns into a range 0 to 5 power plus 5 priority minus 5 attack. And if you pair that with strike, you can have stun guard 5 as well at a total priority of -2, which, as people who have fought Cadenza know, is really hard to clash. This means that Metamagical Strike is basically an unclashable attack that deals 9 damage and has full board range with stun guard 5. This wouldn't really be a big problem if she didn't get mana so easily, right? Because it still costs you 5 mana to do. But it's trivial, right? Because you basically regain mana every turn. And if you are quote-unquote dumb cycling Metamagical Strike, and by dumb cycling or windmill slamming, I mean you play it every time it enters your hand, you have gained 1, 2, 3 mana over that rotation, plus the 3 mana you get from just hitting the opponent. So it's actually mana positive to just repeatedly play Metamagical Strike. It's not a healthy play pattern, considering that you can just do a full rotation of Metamagical Strike into Unstable Drive with no magic into Dodge, right? Like Celestial Dodge, Unstable Drive, no magic, and then Metamagical Strike. And she would just basically play these 3 attacks over and over again. It's not fun, and it doesn't even get to the point where we're like shooting meteors, right? Because if we just play Metamagical Meteor at 5 mana, it's the same thing. Like, it has near full board range, deals 10 damage, is even slower, so it's even harder to clash, and it has all the stun guard you could ever want. And it even regains 6 magic overall, so yeah, this is becoming an increasingly worrying play pattern for Orianna. It's cool that she can do that, but it might not be healthy that she can. So there's actually no changes to Orianna yet. We want to test her more and see whether or not that play pattern is beatable. But from what I know in my personal experience, it's just, yeah, no. Yeah, Jared, absolutely correct. You can just wait back, sit back, and let your force gather itself. Hey, Alex. Yes and no. This is not the BCO test environment. This is the BattleCon playtest module, where we're going over the changes for BattleCon Devastation, because it's going to be reprinted in BattleCon Unleashed. So somebody else wanted to talk about Underbite. I am not going over every single Underbite card, because I'm not insane, right? But I want to talk about a specific card. So I went over every single card before. And let's not go over every single card now, because there's too many and it took me 30 minutes last time. It's gonna hurt me. Alright, let's talk about real life and real stuff. This isn't me going over every single card. This is just me trying to prove a point. Okay, this is all I need. Okay, so Underbite. Underbite. So currently, Underbite has 2 major problems. Number 1. It's just one major problem, really. Analysis mode, not analysis mode, sorry. Reactor mode, this mode over here, is the only mode you should ever play. All the other modes are strictly inferior to reactor mode, at least in my testing, right? Hey, Nick Long, yes, he's supposed to have a reference card. He will have a giant reference card for himself, right? He'll probably have like 3, 4 cards as opposed to everybody else's 2. So yeah. Reactor mode is becoming a problem. And why is it a problem, you might ask? So the thing about the modes is that they all have different antis, and they also have different energy gain conditions, right? So for example, lockdown mode gains energy for each damage you deal, and then you can spend 5 energy as an anti to gain stun immunity. And then reactor mode is special because its anti actually does nothing. You can just spend 1 energy to do nothing. But end of beat, you regain 4 energy constantly. You would want to spend energy to do nothing because remember, if you would gain energy, you suffer 1 chip for each energy you're unable to regain. So for example, if you're at 5 energy and you gain 4 energy, you lose 4 life because you can't go above 5 energy. So what's the big deal here? The big deal here is that the styles all consume energy, right? So, for example, displacement, you have to spend 3 to push or pull 1 to 3, spend 3 to pull 3, spend 2 for +2 power, spend 2 to make the opponent discard a base, spend 3 to close 3, spend 1 to retreat 1 to 2, and spend 4 to regain to gain 0 to 3 range for a total of 0 to 5 range. So one thing you'll notice is that a large majority of his styles force you to spend around 2 to 3 energy to gain their effects, right? And this could be a problem because the conditions for regaining energy on a lot of the modes, specifically these 3, are very conditional. This one requires you to deal damage. This one requires you to hit. This one requires you to take damage, right? And only balance and reactor mode have a steady income of energy. For BattleCon veterans, if the opponent is a very evasive character or a character who just loves to play dodge, these 3 are not gaining you energy around like 1/3 every rotation, right? And that's absurd. You basically end up having blank styles, and note that all of these styles are usually blank without their effects, right? You end up having blank styles because you end up not gaining any energy. So you might as well play Reactor and just gain the most amount of energy possible. Now people might be asking, why not Balance? Well, number 1, Balance regains half the energy that Reactor does. And the only reason you would take Balance is for this anti-effect of spend 5 energy for +1 power, +1 priority, and +1 guard. But that's not worth 5 energy. Considering that in balance mode, you would have to have spent 3 turns not spending energy to have 5 energy. Just not worth it, right? So at the end of the day, why bother with all of the antis if you could just gain 4 energy every time and then just spend it on your styles? Because currently the way Underbite is built is that you have to choose between either getting the effects on your styles or getting the anti-effects on your mode. And 9 times out of 10, or 9 out of 10 dentists agree that you would rather just spend the energy on your styles because oftentimes they're more value, right? Like for this one, +2 energy for +2 power. Sorry, spend 2 energy for +2 power compares supremely more favorably than 5 energy for +1 power, +1 priority, and +1 guard. Like, that's just the truth of the matter. So that's Underbit's problem. He's getting a lot of changes to his cards. Based on, sorry, that was my mic. That was my mouse disconnecting. So based on what I've seen in the patch notes, Underbite's basically getting changes akin to making his energy expenditures a little bit smaller, or and also making it so that Reactor is not the only mode you play. Styles that are less, blank without energy. That would really help a lot in making Underbit a bit more diverse. Because currently, Underbit's literally just built like a brawler boy. Like, you take Reactor mode, and then you take all of the cards with positive stats on them, and that's Underbit. Like, you do any other build, because you can do it that way, but they all are just strictly worse than Reactor mode. Reactor mode with brawler stats, so yeah, that's why. So, Let's move on to another character who is a robot who is proving to be a little bit problematic. So, Clive. Clive got an actual change in terms of burnout. So this used to say when you are stunned for each module, you may spend 2 force instead of trashing that module. So that's what it currently says. It used to only cost 1 force. That was not allowed. Too easy for Clive to retain his modules, right? So what's the big problem with Clive? Well, really, it's just, this isn't a problem with playtest Clive and more of a problem with actual Clive. So for the people who don't follow BattleCON paper and don't know who Clive is a character is borderline one of the strongest characters in the entire game. Mostly because of the fact that his styles are really evasive and have really good stats for what they do, right? Like this one, Start to Beat Retreats you 1 has priority +0, but note that Clive has a module that gives him priority +1. So Rocket is actually a range 2 to 3, power +2, priority +1, with Start to Beat Retreat 1, and then hit you, push or pull the opponent 1 to 2 spaces. Like, if you're playing Rocket, your opponent isn't hitting you. And basically, that's pretty much the story of Clive. Clive will hit you, and then you can't hit Clive back. And this is becoming increasingly problematic. Basically because Clive warps matchups really, really hard. If you're a character with basically a bunch of attacks that are stun guard 5 shots, fine, Clive can't really do much, but otherwise, you're gonna get stunned, you're gonna, miss, you're gonna end up at... The play pattern for Clive is really basically like this, right? You're fighting against an opponent, say it's Gaspar, right? Clive will do something like, play Rocket, end up at range like this, and then he'll play Leaping to close and then deal 7 damage to you. And not to mention he already dealt 5 damage to you after doing Rocket. So it's like he'll Rocket you for 5 damage, and then he'll Leaping in for 7 damage, and then he'll Megaton hit the opponent, go back to maximum range again, and deal 4 damage in the process, and then he can do Rocket again the next turn, and then deal like 5 damage again. Like, this is just the Clive play pattern, and it's currently quite oppressive, and it might not be... Sorry, my mouse disconnected again. I need a new mouse. It might not be the most healthy play pattern for Clive to be able to do stuff like that constantly. So that's definitely something that we're considering changing. So there you go. I'm going to take a short break and ask all of y'all what you want. Sorry, I'm just waiting for your comments. I just want to see how you feel about these changes or how you feel about these kinds of updates. I do want to know. It's very important for me to understand and know how my audience is. So, how's everyone doing? How's everyone liking the stream so far? Is there something I could do to make the stream better? I am sorry that I started a little bit late. YouTube was not cooperating. And do people like this time better than the old time? I'm pretty sure that not a lot of people like this time because it's pretty early in the morning and you'd have to be a crazy person, basically. You wanted to play an actual game? Okay, so that's a bit rough to do it on stream. So I used to do actual games on stream as well. It's just that they would take so long and the stream would kind of really bog down because of it. And when in reality, what most people really wanted to see were the character changes, right? They didn't want to see the characters play. They wanted to see the updates and get news about the characters. So that's kind of how the streams evolved into this form. I might go back to playing actual games on stream. if people want that. But it's not. It's currently not in the plate for this stream, especially because I need to have a specific guest come on. It can't just be anyone. I have to do setup. We have to do recording setup and everything. It's a big deal, right? And it's just not in the cards for me right now. So I do apologize. Ugh, I'm sorry. My mouse has been really bad. I've had a lot of tech issues this week. For people who don't know, I guess I'll just talk about my life now. For people who don't know, I actually had internet problems, which really bogged down my playtesting this week. I wish I had played more games. I got a few games in, but not enough for me, because I really want to play more games. BattleCon's fun, and why wouldn't I want to play more games? Okay. So, if nobody else is gonna speak up, I'm just gonna keep going through all the characters and give everybody the playtesting feedback, right? And an update. So, it might not look like Mikael got changed, but I want everyone to... Whoop. I pressed the Windows button instead of the Alt button. I want everyone to pay special attention to this style. I want everyone to bask in it, to see the fact that that's priority +3. So yes, Mikael now has a special switch style, which has +3 priority. So this is a very big deal for Mikael, right? Because Mikael is on average a slow character. His fastest attack is hollowed, but everything else is negative priority or 0 priority. This means that giving him access to a fast option like a prio +3 style is really cool, because now Mikael has the ability to close games. One of Mikael's biggest weaknesses is that near the end game, if Mikael has low life, he actually can't really do much, right? He has to just eat the opponent's attack and hope that it doesn't kill him. But now he has an option. He can just play a fast attack and hopefully kill the opponent. Really interesting play that you can do with Mikael now. So overall, Mikael has been testing well with that switch change. It's probably going to go down to +2 prio instead of +3. But yeah, does anybody have any questions about Mikael, about the stream, or anything else? If not, I can continue to the next character. I'm just going to wait for the stream lag to catch up. There you go. I woke up early to watch. Hey, Joe, thank you for being here. Will we see a multiplayer match at some point? 2-on-2? I already played Gaspar on stream once. That's it. Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to do an actual game, it's just going to be a cool stuff, right? Like, trying to do both is kind of wacky. Hey, Jared. Yes. So, would you say that Wanderers has finished testing? Yes, indeed. It has finished testing. The Wanderers characters are, for the most part, done. So, whatever version of Wanderers you see latest, that is probably what's going into print. Joe Goodman asks, do you need to anti to use Switch on Mikael? Yes. You must anti to use Switch on Mikael. So part of the reason why we gave it this priority is because Mikael's ability works on styles. And the big system change is that Switch is now a style. You understand? Because before, Switch was not a style, so Mikael didn't have to anti a seal to use it. But now Switch is a style, so he has to anti a seal to use it. So rather than give him an exception that says, reveal no seal anti your style unless it's Switch, right? Instead of doing that, we just made Switch an actual viable option for a style. And for people concerned about his finisher, note that you can still do the 4th seal by simply anteing a seal on the turn that you want to use the 4th seal, because you would end up with no seals held. Though the bad thing is that now Magnus Malleus will never work with 3 seals, because you have to spend 1 seal to use switch to begin with. So that might be something we need to consider. But overall, Mikael's been testing good. So Jared, not standard bases, but standard cards and kits. I don't think I showed it off clearly enough, but if you look at Gaspar's kit, nope. So if you look at Gaspar's kit, he actually does not have, well, rather, if you look at Gaspar's unique ability, read the setup effect. Place the clone in the furthest space in the arena duplicated as inactive. Gaspar's kit removes the dodge base. So this actually goes away, and Gaspar does not have a dodge. So that's one example. Another example would be somebody like Underbite or Underbit, wherein his switch style is also unique, because now it says spend force equal to your life to replace your attack with your finisher. So that's the normal reveal, but the end of the effect is what's important here. Regain a force. You may flip both your finisher and mode to their reverse sides. So for people who have never played Underbit before, it's very important to understand that Underbit's modes... Did I put Underbit's modes here? Yes, I did. So Underbit's modes are actually the other side of his finishers. So for example, I decided to do Acquisition Mode Equilibrium as my setup. If I do Switch, I can change it to Balance Mode Break, right? So it essentially not only switches your finisher, it also switches your mode when you do Switch as Underbit. So there. Yes, it does indeed set that precedent. And yes, more than one character does something like that. How do you feel about that change, everyone? Does it feel a bit too wacky? I'm gonna wait for stream lag to catch up. I want to hear everyone's comments on something like that, because that would be useful feedback for me. Fair. Yeah, indeed, it is indeed fair. So, let's move on to the poster girl for this stream, Marmalee. So Marmalee got a big change. 2 big changes, in fact. So, Marms... So this looks like nullifying got changed, but not really. It was just more of like reverting nullifying back to old nullifying, because there was a version of nullifying that was a bit different. But now it's just the same. But instead of making the opponent lose power, it's just Marmalee gains armor. Magnificent's the same, so there used to be an old Magnificent. So we went from old Magnificent to a new Magnificent, which ended up testing not so well, so we just put it back to old Magnificent. So this Magnificent is just the same Magnificent. I've said the word Magnificent too many times. Alright. Hey, it's Kevin. What's up? Valor Crash. I mean, that's completely fair. If you want to test the character first before giving your own comments, that's completely fine. It might throw a new player off that switch is different for a character. Completely true, but also all the characters that have switch be different are not beginner characters. Yeah. Feel uncomfortable about switch variations? That's fair. One possible thing is that we could just not name them switch. So one thing is that we could just, like, for example, like Mikael's whatever is just called like Heavenly Switch, right? Or Mikael or Underbite Switch is called like, you know, Reconfigurating Switch, like something like that, right? Yes, magnificent. Armor is indeed the new Soak, and Chip is indeed the new Life Loss. However, Armor is functionally different from Soak. So, for fans of characters who do multiple attacks, if a character, for example, has 3 attacks that deal 3 damage each, and you have Soak 3, you would take 0 damage because Soak would apply to every single one of those damage instances. However, Armor is different because once Armor negates damage, Armor gets depleted. So this means that if you had the opponent attack you thrice and you had 3 armor, you take 6 damage because you would armor the first 3 damage, but not the subsequent 2 instances of 3 damage, right? It's not a name change. So armor is a keyword that has existed for a long time. Ever since original Devastation. And it was mostly used in multiplayer. So we just basically got rid of Soak and replaced it with armor. On literally almost all the cards. Yeah. So the thing about it is that we can make a giant sweeping change like this and not have it be inconsistent. Because we're changing all the cards. So it's not going to be inconsistent after we print it, right? That's a really good piece of feedback, everyone. I think that having Switch be a different name, or at least be differently named for the characters with unique switches would be cool. So I want to talk about Marmalee's big change here, and it's a change to barrier. So for people who didn't know, a barrier used to essentially be a 0 to 1, -1 something style that for concentration, you could avoid all attacks, as if your opponent cannot hit you, right? Now barrier is significantly different. It is now a 0 to 1 power +2, and then you have stun immunity if you have 2 concentration. Then if you get hit, you lose that concentration. This card is really good. Because on average, you're hitting your opponent for +2 power, and you don't even have to spend the concentration for the stun immunity, right? It just happens when it happens. It's really good. And even way stronger than Old Barrier. Because sure, Old Barrier gave you a free turn. But Barrier is basically a free turn most of the time. And it only costs 2 concentration. As opposed to 4 concentration. And if you're a Marmalee player, 2 concentration is just so much easier to hit than 3 concentration or 4 concentration, because meditation gives you 2 concentration no matter what. So even if you get stunned or whatever, so long as you meditate or use the meditation base, you end up with 2 concentration anyway. So you can almost always barrier. It's insanely good. This change to BCO Marm went. Kevin, no. Kevin, please, no. I'm pretty sure if BCO Marm got this, she'd basically become the best character in that entire game. Like, the only way she gets away with this in BattleCon paper is because there are way more control characters who can make sure that barrier doesn't work. But Okay, and one other change we have to talk about is meditation. So meditation now has an end of beat effect that allows you to spend force to regain concentration. So yes, meditation can now go up to 3 concentration from 0 concentration. Wild. Really good card. Especially for Marmalee. So Marmalee's not a character who spends force that often. She doesn't really want the power, and she doesn't really want the stun guard, because none of her styles have stun guard anyway. So really what she's going for is the speed if the opponent decides to anti-speed. But even then, she has petrifying to kind of be speed agnostic, so it's not really that important to her to spend force. So she now has a force outlet in terms of meditation. So basically in testing, these two ended up being too good. Barrier's probably going up to 3 concentration on both of these effects, and meditation's probably going up to 4 force. But otherwise, Marmalee's been testing fine. Marmalee's still Marmalee. Marmalee is really good. I mean, I don't know. A +2 power style with stun immunity and no negative priority is just wild. Because the thing about it is, if your opponent ever decides to play a slower attack than barrier or whatever you're playing, they're gonna get stunned and you don't even have to spend the concentration to do it. It's really good. It's really good. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. That's just how good it is. It kind of offends me a little bit. Staff. Does it trade negatively against Caster, though? Because if Kimbe's hitting you with Caster, remember, the staff has to be on your space. Which means Marmalee's getting +2 power, too. So Kimbe's going to hit Marmalee for 5 or 7, and then Marmalee hits her back for 7+. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kevin just ninja'd me, but alright. So, let's talk about the Aria in the room. So, Aria. Here's the problem. We found out this degenerative pair is really annoying. Oh, well, you know what? Illuminate, that's fine. I mean, Marmalee is not a big power character. Okay, well, Mirage, I'll do that after I do Aria. Here's the problem with Aria. This attack pair is indicative of a bigger problem. But essentially, it might look like a decent attack pair, but note that this is a Prio 7 attack. So you're going to be like, oh, it doesn't stun the opponent anyway. And the attack's only in spaces of all droids, right? Okay, just read the effects. Before teleport to any space. Okay. And place a droid from your supply in any space. So this will always hit so long as you have a droid in your supply. Step number 1, this attack always hits. But how about this? This attack's damage does not stun opponents. Well, hit at range 3, power +2, and the opponent is stunned. Okay, so you have to position it properly. Oh, wait, you can teleport to any space. People can see the problem with this, right? This is essentially a 3 power attack that always stuns the opponent and goes at Prio 7. You can see how this can be a bit unfair. Right? I'm not the only insane person here, right? Well, Kevin, you're evil. But this is an indication of the bigger problem with Aria. So currently Aria's big thing is that she's a bit too fast for how much damage she gets, and a bit too fast for how consistently safe she is. And also her droid placement has basically turned completely trivial, because she can just put them wherever the heck she wants, and it kind of just works all the time. So it can get really crazy, and yeah, it's just really rough. Aria is one of those problematic characters because not only is she a control character, she's a control character with stats, and that's just a powerful combination in BattleCon. Okay. The fact that the soundtrack just repeated means that we've been here for at least a good 45 minutes. Well, Mirage, note that the passive effect states that the attack's damage can't stun, right? Which is completely separate from the fact that they get stunned by the on-hit effect. So, somebody requested for Byron. Let's talk about this boyo. Man, Byron's lore is completely hilarious to me. Because he's like this evil lich guy who wants to take over the world. But simultaneously also like one of the best comedic relief characters ever. Because every time he tries to take over the world, somebody else takes over instead. I mean, look, people can constantly, yeah, because we all know Aria's broken. Aria is not okay to be printed in her current state. That's for sure. Okay, let's talk about Byron. Here's the changes. Specifically to Solus. So Solus in a previous version just said avoid attacks. Now it just says prevent all incoming damage. How is this relevant? This is relevant because a lot of characters relied on their hit effects and on damage effects to do things and hopefully dodge Solus. So now, Byron still can't die, but the opponent can still hit Byron and hopefully move him to a place where he might miss, or move themselves to a place where Byron might miss. Right? This is very important. So that Byron is a healthy character to fight against. So overall, Byron is looking mostly okay. He has a problem with these two styles, Faceless and Breathless. Faceless because it's a really awkward style with no defenses. And in a game like BattleCon, a Prio plus 0 style with no defenses and no hit confirm, or rather, no evasive hit confirm, is really rough. It's not going to be safe enough to basically do anything with. And that's basically what Byron feels about this style. It's basically dead half the time unless he's against slow characters. And at that point, it feels awkward because why would he need the +4 priority, right? So it's just weird. It's just a weird card in general. And yeah, the big difference with the red style is that... Oh, sorry, mouse. The big difference with the red style is that there's no longer a range condition on this thing. So it will always just give you armor 4 and always just give you +4 priority. It used to have a scalar effect that was like hit range 1, gain armor or gain soak equal to the amount of damage you dealt, and the next beat gain priority equal to the amount of damage you dealt. So we just flattened it all out. It's just armor 4, priority 4, right? Yeah, see, Kevin, you think that's true, but also remember that Evil Hikaru has a faster unique base than Byron does, but also Evil Hikaru has Evil Wind and Evil Fire, which both effectively count as defensive stats. Byron cannot give Faceless those kinds of stats. Just saying. Faceless Grasp is 5 priority. If you think a 5 priority attack with no defenses is gonna work most of the time, you're crazy, friend. So, Breathless is not a bad card, but it just so happens to be the most awkward card in his kit. Because the use case is also... The case where you would want the Breathless is also exactly... Okay, look. Breathless is obviously a card that's built to work like this. You're cornered, your opponent is here. You move all the way here, and then you whack them with Breathless. They get chipped for 2, right? And you gain armor. Whatever. The armor's not really that relevant because, you know, if you're teleporting literally to the opposite side of the board, your opponent's likely gonna miss. But let's just assume that you hit it, right? So you gain chip 2 and armor 3. Pretty good, right? But you could have also just played Soulless in this exact same situation and dealt 8 damage to the opponent instead. You're seeing where the problem lies, right? The use case for Breathless is almost exactly in the same positioning for Soulless. And if you're trying to compete with Soulless, you're not gonna win. It's not a... So here's the thing, right? It could be a mix-up, right? But Soulless is unclashable more than 90% of the time. Deals a butt-ton of damage. And you can't die when you use Soulless. Because you can't take damage while doing it. So you will always trade positively. And when Soulless is down... I guess... Like, so you do Soulless, and then you Breathless on the turn after you Soulless. But yeah, Breathless feels very awkward and very situational. I mean, overall, that's just Byron in a nutshell, right? But there you go. Breathless ends up being his worst card. We're not sure whether or not it needs a change. And I'm not even sure if Soulless can stay this way. So one big thing about this version of Soulless is that it creates checkmate situations really easily. If your opponent drops a dodge, you can just dodge into their face to get the range 1 and then Soulless. And then they can't do anything about it. They're gonna eat it and die, right? And can get really rough. And checkmate situations are something that high-level BattleCon players tend to do. But I'm not sure if it should be this easily accessible. And people are going to point out, oh, you deplete a mask, right? And if you're at 0 masks, you're eliminated. Yes, but also, if your opponent doesn't die after eating an 8 damage Soulless, I think you've lost the game way before you played the Soulless, right? Okay, well, here's the big deal, right? It's not functionally the same, in my opinion. Because Soulless is actually useful in a lot more situations than Breathless is. And Mechanical is just... Like, the gap between Clockwork and Mechanical is not as big as the gap between Breathless and Soulless, right? I think, at least in my opinion. There you go, there's Byron. And yeah, and that's the problem, right? Like, I understand that a lot of his power budget is in Soulless, but also, is it fun or healthy for a character to just be a style? You know what I mean? And that's not exactly something I'm not sure of the answer to that question, right? And honestly, it's not my question to answer. Okay. Kaja. Kaja. So, in case you did not notice, all of Kaja's cards are different. So we put her back to old Kaja. She no longer does the thing where she has the insects and then she chips you 1 every turn and then she has a breakpoint of 7, blah, blah, blah. Nah, she is literally just old Kaja again. And I'm not even kidding. She is just actually old Kaja. These are just old Kaja's cards. Apparently, you should just not mess with perfection. Because apparently old Kaja was fine. So welcome back, old Kaja. I don't know what else to say. She just parried with Breathless and now she just smoked me to death. I mean, here's the thing. That's not Breathless being good. That's just somebody getting a hard read on you. So you have never seen this Kaja. So this is original Kaja. Swarming. Did it? I think Swarming has guard now. All of these just look the same to me. I mean, yes, the UA... This is just old Kaja. Even the UA is back. Even the UA is the same. She used to dodge at range 1 in case any of the discards had tokens. I see. Okay, yeah, that's actually completely fair. Stinging and Swarming are now different because they have to be in a specific discard pile, not just a number of discards. That's fair, that's fair. So, yeah, that is a big difference, right? Because, for example, if the insects are here, you get the first effects. But even if you don't give the opponent an insect, and then the insect goes here, you get the second effects instead. Which is cool. I don't think it's a straight nerf. I think it's actually a side grade. Yeah, I think it's a side grade for sure, because obviously ignore guard is better than ignore armor. And avoiding attacks at range 1 and avoiding attacks at range 2 are, you know, not... I think 1 is better than 2, but they're still different enough that it's good. Yeah. It used to dodge at range 1 more reliably. That's fair. She's close to... I mean, look, Kaja's the premier grappler character, right? She dumpsters on melee characters on average. So, yeah, I do not disagree with that. So, overall, Kaja has tested well. Really good, though. A lot of my Kaja testing has been against, specifically, Orianna. And Kaja dumpsters Orianna, by the way, in case you didn't know, because these two things beat Mathemagical Meteor. That's all you need to know. This one dodges it, this one stuns it. And then she just tries to play anything else, burrowing them. I mean, like, yeah. It's... Yeah. Kaja has a really good matchup against Orianna. Especially because Orianna's not very mobile and has to pay mana to move. Oh, yeah. Okay, I think that's something I need to explain. So why Kevin's saying that? One of Kaja's big problems as a character in general is just that this is a prio -1, this is a prio -1, this is a prio -1. This is a prio +1, and then this, if it's correct. So here's the thing. if you have no insects, it's a prio -1. So it's the same as these other 3. If you have one set of insects, it becomes a prio +0. So it's the same as switch. And then if you have 2 insects, it's a prio +1, which is the same as sting. This means that Kaja's prio spread is complete trash. all of her attacks have the same-ish priority, which makes her one of the most clashable characters in the entire game. And yeah, Carolyn's just rough. Hey, let me play exoskeletal quick. Real quick. Yeah, exoskeletal real quick. Real quick. Yeah, that's just it. Every single time. Hey, look, it's Lissandra, also known as this character keeps becoming problematic. So, we accidentally found something in testing. Found something that I am not happy with. So, Renegade. Hey, look, it's Renegade Vile. I've been seeing your comments on the OST. I'm sorry I haven't changed and given the credits for the audio or uploaded the main theme yet. I've been really busy with testing. So give me a bit and I'll get there. Can you look at Caesar? So I'm in a conundrum here, right? This bag does not have Caesar. And if I were to if I were to open this, I might accidentally show all of you something you're not supposed to see on stream. So, and by that I mean it's like private top secret stuff, right? Playtester only stuff. So, I'm gonna hold off on Caesar. If we have the time, I might go to Caesar, but we'll see. Okay, let's talk about Lissandra. And one of the big problems with Lissandra. Number 1, binding is annoying. You play binding shot, or play binding grasp, or whatever, and then you just heal and get 2 power. Basically, if the opponent moves to any capacity, binding just turns into a heck hole. But more than that, let's talk about her unique ability. So one thing I didn't catch right away that the playtesters ended up finding out was end of beat optional spend any amount of life. Let me phrase that again. Any amount of life. So you're thinking to yourself, how's this problematic? Well, what if at the end of beat 1 you decide to spend, I don't know, 19 life to get yourself to 1 life? But Marco, why would you ever do that? Well, if you're at 1 life on beat 2, you can finish her on beat 2. And normally that's not a big problem. You wouldn't really want to spend 19 life just to play a finisher until you realize that you have Mazzaroth, which is start a beat, your life becomes 1. It was already 1 anyway. Trash all your familiars for +1 armor each. And then end of the next beat, kill the opponent. So the playtesters have figured out the degeneracy that is get a few familiars, spend all of my life so that I can finish her next turn. Finish her next turn, have around 3 to 4 armor to not die. Then dodge the next beat and my opponent instantly dies. So we can all see why that is a problem. Look, I'm not gonna lie. When the testers first told me about it, I was like, excuse me, what? But there you go. It's, yeah. I don't know how else to explain it, but yeah. Oh, it's definitely risky, right? I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying that against another competent player it'll happen, but there is a concept in game design where developers have to protect the players from themselves, right? And if we're wondering what that means, essentially, we want it so that players don't end up doing something accidentally stupid that basically makes them feel really bad about what they just did. And this is akin to stuff like this, right? Where the game lets you spend 19 life, but maybe we shouldn't let you do that, right? And Renegade is absolutely correct. However, the problem is sometimes characters just don't have any way to deal with it. And that's the problem. I'm not saying it's going to be a problem against most characters, but for the small subset of characters who can't beat an attack like that, you're done. Yep, exactly. I mean, it's not just about whether or not it's broken, right? Or actually good. It's always about whether or not it's fun to play against. Yep. Fielding 5 power is very easy for a large majority of characters, actually. But then suddenly some characters just can't. And that's the problem. Like Rin from Wanderers. I don't think Rin has a way to deal 5 damage. Or, Demetras. I mean, Demetras can get 5 damage if he just spends his crescendo. But yeah. See, there's a difference between being able to do cool things and being able to do extremely dumb things, right? This is basically the equivalent of, you know, Kadath can Dimensional Exile on turn 2. Is it good? No. Is it annoying and stupid? Yes, right? Like we can't just have the game degenerate into, oh, do you find a way to beat my finisher? And then do you find a way to clash my dodge, right? The big problem with the Lissandra thing is that a lot of the game prior to when she Mazeroths doesn't actually matter. Because even if you deal more damage to her, she'll just spend it all for blood so that she can finish her the next turn anyway. So it makes no difference, right? Whether you spent the first few turns getting Lissandra down to 3 life, or Lissandra beats you and she's at 19 life, it doesn't matter. She Mazeroths, goes down to 1, and then dodges the next turn. This is an unfun play pattern. And overall, probably not something we want to keep. Yeah, we do try. I think BattleCon has the benefit of the character decks being pre-made and unchangeable. A lot of card games, the problem with the degeneracy is that combinations and emergence can happen. So there you go. Those are all the characters currently in testing. I would love to go over some of the older characters. But if you wanted to do that, You can just watch the VODs or VODs of the previous streams. I did go over Caesar in those ones. So if you're missing out on Caesar and you want to see some Caesar, he's there in the older streams. Did he get any changes? I don't think Caesar actually was changed from BCO Caesar, except that all instances of power minus blah 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 are now just instances of armor, I think. Your favorite robot? Who's your favorite robot? Yeah. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has the problem of bloat. Every card is legal. There goes my my mouse again. I do apologize. My technical issues this week have been really bad. Hopefully I just haven't ruined the stream for all of you. So, I'm gonna take these last... Oh, Kevin. Once we get to reveal who that character is, it'll be super hype. Alright, mouse, work with me, please. Renegade, probably yes. As far as I know, that is the case. But note that just because we change him to be some way in PaperCon doesn't mean that BCO Caesar will now be like that, right? PaperCon and BattleCon Online are probably gonna become very different games, and they're already very different games anyway. But yeah, don't expect them to be 1:1 translations of each other. So I'm gonna reserve the last few minutes of this stream for Q&A. So if you want to ask me some questions about the characters, about testing, about anything under the sun, or level 99 games, or otherwise, now's your chance to do it live with me on stream. Friends. We are friends, are we? Aren't we? So let me switch over to a nicer looking overlay. Hopefully that worked. Did it work? So I'm just gonna wait for some questions from all of y'all. Okay, so how come there will be a difference between the two? Because both the games require very different things, right? BattleCon Online and BattleCon Offline will basically still feel like the same game. Like, overall. It's just that... Okay, there you go. Yeah, there you go. I just switched to the Marmalee overlay. That's good. Okay, so BattleCon Online and BattleCon Physical have never been the same game, even prior to all of these changes, right? The overall experience is going to be generally the same. Just don't expect them to be direct translations. In fact, right now, they're not actually direct translations. So why is this important? This is important because of the fact that the pools of characters are different, and therefore the characters in those games have different needs, right? In BattleCon Online, not every single BattleCon character in existence is in it, which means that the meta for BattleCon Online is very much different from the meta of BattleCon Offline. So they're very different experiences on that level. But if you're just wondering, like, oh, is Cadenza's Clockwork Shot still going to be Clockwork Shot? Yes, it's still going to be Clockwork Shot. The kinds of differences are going to be probably stuff like, you know, Caesar's power -2 is in BattleCon Online, but Caesar in paper gets armor 2, right? It's things like that will probably be different. But don't expect stuff like, you know, Clockwork Shot is power +3, prio -3, soak 3 in one game, and then in another game, Clockwork Shot is a 0 to 5 range style with -3 power, right? Like, it's not going to be like that. With Exceed getting the Street Fighter crossover, are there any hopes for BattleCon doing something similar with a different property? So, this is a very Brad-centered question, and I can't really speak for everyone in the company, right? But from what I know personally, as me, Marco DeSantos, BattleCon is a strict quote-unquote Indians thing, right? So Indians could possibly have a guest character of Ryu, kind of like how we have Mage War's guest characters, right? But it's very unlikely that we're going to release a set called BattleCon Street Fighter, right? Because that's mostly what Exceed does. That's what Exceed is for. BattleCon itself is mostly a system for the world of Indians to thrive in. Yeah, exactly. So Renegade Vile points out the big thing. A lot of these changes are to make it so that everything is parsable by the players much easier. BCO does not have this problem because the computer keeps track of everything for you. So it takes off that burden. Yeah, I don't think the timer is the big difference here. I think the character pools are. So in BCO, for example, a lot of characters will point and say, "Oh, Mikael is really strong," or "Oh, Eligor is really strong," right? I'm not saying that they are the top tiers in the game. I'm just giving an example, right? Somebody might say, "Oh, Eligor is top tier in BattleCon Online," and that could be an entirely true statement. But also in PaperCon, Eligor is probably garbage tier, right? Because in PaperCon, like, a lot of... Okay. If you've listened to the previous episode of the podcast, episode 31, where I basically answered this question, the meta for BattleCon Online is very different because a lot of the characters in BattleCon Online were implemented based kind of on their difficulty of implementation and how wacky their effects are. Which is why you won't see characters like Gaspar or Welsi in BattleCon Online currently. It's because they have really wacky effects. So this means that characters with more simple effects ended up getting into BattleCon Online first. What does this mean? A large majority of BattleCon Online's cast are stat people. People with stats, people who care about stats, people who function entirely based upon their stats. And rarely is there a character in BattleCon Online with an effect that does a wacky thing, like calculate their attack's range from the opposite side of the board, or, you know, make it so that the board now wraps around itself. So if you retreat while you're in the edge of the arena, you teleport to the opposite side of the board. Like, these are all crazy effects that don't exist in BattleCon Online because of how wacky they are. This also warps the meta in BattleCon Online a bit, which means that if you're a character with great stats, you kind of are really strong in BattleCon Online. But in BattleCon Paper, if you're a character with great stats, it usually doesn't mean anything, because a control character can easily just come in and ruin your day. But control characters don't exist in BattleCon Online, at least to the capacity that they exist in BattleCon Paper, right? Yeah, I just switched to the screen because I didn't want you guys to just stare at the board while I was talking, and I feel like this was a better way to do it. Okay. You would know it would solve the Exceed Online problem. Indine's Exceed. I mean, like, I wouldn't be opposed to Indine's Exceed myself. Lotus Ether Machine asks, are the alternate UA and cards in Devastation Extended Edition still tournament playable, balanced compared to the new Devastation, or are they also going to be updated at some point? So, I think there's a misconception here. They were never tournament playable. So, alternate UA cards were never tournament playable. So, that's one. Number two, most likely they are not receiving updates. The side modes and stuff, they're not getting updates per se. And I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen any updates to them right now. They might be getting them later, but currently I cannot say any more. Not because I know and I can't reveal it, but more of I just don't know. But as far as I know, there are no changes to the alternate UAs, and the alternate UAs have never been tournament legal. Kevin asks, second BattleCon Online tournament, please. Soon. The first one went really well. I was really glad. Congratulations to our winners, Mix, Moon Knight, as well as LP Finale. I really, really, really want to do the second one when I have more preparation up. So more collaterals, better prizes, and of course more coverage. I want to do more coverage. I don't want Kevin just picking up all the slack and doing all of the coverage himself. I want to do some official coverage and have interviews and stuff like that. So I'm talking it out with the people on the team, and we'll see. So, if there are no more questions, I'm going to wait a few more minutes for more questions. But if there are no more questions, I'm going to end this stream. So get your questions in before I leave, y'all. Alright, it seems that nobody has any more questions. So, I will end the stream here. Thank you so much for being with me, everyone. Shoutouts to everyone who is asking questions and interacting with me. As usual, I really, really love it when you guys talk to me. And I really love being able to show all of you the playtesting updates. I know this isn't something that a lot of people get access to. Oh, wait, so there's more questions. So, Renegade Vile asks, since Unleashed is the last Kickstarter you guys will do, I'm guessing future sporadic fighters will just be one-offs, no more big boxes and the like. As far as I know, yes. Dumb question. Will Nihil Eraser change to infinite power? Maybe. Currently, it's 999. Imperial Exceed. Fast-paced train combat? Look, man. In Imperial, I'm pretty sure we can suplex a train, so we've succeeded. Okay, and it's not just about me, it's also about, I really like the community getting excited. I mean, look, as the community manager person, I really love it when you guys are excited about stuff. So, Kevin, no doubt, man, I'm the first one there. Will there be more promo characters? Sporadic one-off releases that aren't big boxes. Do you consider those to be promo characters? Maybe. All changes are final? Yes and no. They're not final until we print them. You guys interrupted my outro. Alt UA for the newer character. I doubt they'll get alt UAs. We'll see. I don't know anything about alt UAs. I have not heard anything about alt UAs. So there you go. So I'll cut off the questions here. Without much else to say, thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed this stream, and I hope you did as well. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please put them in the comment section down below. And don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, which I highly doubt you haven't yet. So please just give me a like and give me a comment. It'll make me happy. I don't know what else to say other than, as usual, that's been me, your host, Marco DeSantos, also known as Mechanic Rick, and with me has been no one except you, my wonderful audience. Don't forget your Switch style, and thank you, World of Indians. Thank you, and good night, and happy gaming.